What's up, Jonah? How's it going?
Uh, I'm super tired, but I'm doing okay.
Cool.
How about you?
Uh, I can't complain. Had a nice nap before playing. So before we jump into the game, real quick, I just wanted to go through something. So in this personal training stuff, the approach that I'm trying is essentially to play you and then mostly ask questions. And my personal goal as a teacher in this game is to get people learning how to both ask questions of themselves, right? Like, so after they play a set or whatever, to get better at asking themselves what they could have done better or what was working well, and then and emphasize, your ability, like cultivating your ability to ask questions and then figure out the answers instead of feeding you answers. And the reason is because basically that's what I think the fun part of fighting games is.
Yeah.
It's not, if I just tell you, oh, this is how you do this better, I kind of deprive you of the joy of figuring that out for yourself and feeling some ownership over your play. So that can be frustrating for some folks who just want the answer. I just figured I'd warn you about that in advance, right? Like, this is the approach that I found to be the most effective for helping people learn fighting games. That sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Great.
I will just mention my connection may not be great because I'm kind of Middle East Coast, not Middle East.
Yeah.
So if there's any problems with the connection,
we'll do what we can.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's play a couple games.
All right.
Chip. Versus Jack O. Get ready to rock.
And people on stream, if there's any audio glitches, just let us know, please. Oh, the minions.
Oh. Oh no.
It's an auspicious first round.
Oh, that dangerous.
Duel 2. All or nothing. It's not over yet. Chip versus Jack O.
We'll play like 3 more games real quick, and then I want to talk for a little bit. Let me gather some data.
Let's rock. Duel 2. Keep on rocking.
Woo! Thank you for making me look really good on my own stream. Especially, I've been taking a lot of L's to Jacko lately, thanks to Cam. So.
It's not over yet. Like, not mindless. He's like pure instinct, terrifying player. So I don't have much matchup experience against Chip because I just get air thrown all day and
Chip versus Jack O.
Chip is a tricky one. Actually, I really like him for testing people out because you can play him in a lot of different ways. He has a wide variety of like risk profiles and just movement patterns and stuff.
not over yet. Oh.
What up? Either Injukis or Miyukis or whatever. That's a good name. Thanks for coming by. Woo! That was tight. You're not having good DP luck today, my friend.
No. Her DP works when it should and doesn't work when it should. It's not over yet. That's a lot of stuff. That's not what I
Alright, gonna check the audio levels real quick. Take Guilty Gear down just a little bit. Stream, let me know if it's too quiet on that end.
Chip, win, straight.
Just a little more. There we go. Again with the long wind quotes.
Chip versus Jack O. Get ready to
Actually.
Heaven or hell. Duel 1. Let's rock.
Okay. So, based on those games so far, was there anything in particular that stood out to you as like something you did either particularly well or particularly poorly?
I I've gotten a little bit better at remembering how to move around Chip and try to space myself around his buttons, but I still have a pretty bad habit of throwing out the big silly H buttons.
Sure.
Usually the wrong one.
Mm-hmm.
Which in some matchups, just some are better than others, and I kind of can't remember most of the time which one is which.
Yeah. What else?
I need to use basic pokes more instead of weird buttons and specials, especially the ones that cost me meter, because I need the meter for reversals, because I don't really have unmetered reversals that aren't awful.
Mm-hmm.
I need to not DP ever unless I can actually tell that it's going to hit. Because it's really bad. Even metered isn't very good, but unmetered is even worse.
I would say those are all accurate. It's good that you are able to at least diagnose some of your decision making in the moment, right? Like sometimes it takes people actually have to go through and watch their own videos in order to figure out that they're making these kinds of errors in judgment, right? So at least it's super cool that you already have a pretty basic understanding of your own of the decisions you're making and how they're not working out for you, right? One thing that I noticed pretty early on, so I don't know if you noticed, but like the first round, and actually the first match went a lot better for you than pretty much all the other rounds, right?
Yeah.
And there was kind of one major thing that I changed pretty early on, and it was honestly just that I stopped running in, right? Because I realized, I think it was during the first round, you did maybe 3 or 4 of her like slide. I don't know if that's her crouch dust, right?
Yes, that's the 3H.
Okay, yeah, her 3H. You did like 3 or 4 of those in rapid succession, and I saw that and I thought, oh, this is one of his go-to pokes, right? And that works really well against Chip when because he will decide to run in on you, and that move just goes from idle to sticking a fat-ass hitbox out early on, right? So you got a lot of mileage out of that, and then once I stopped doing it, I was sitting back and realizing that you are playing your neutral kind of as if it were rock, paper, scissors. And what I mean by that is there's a couple different things that you're looking for in neutral that you just feel confident in, right? And one of them is Dragon Punch. One of them is like the jump back air fireball. One of them is the long chain ball and chain attack. I don't know if that's her toward.
That's her 6H.
6H, yeah. And one of them was the slide, right? So you have like a couple basic options which cover a moderate amount of neutral, right? And so it feels like you've got one of these things. You'll pay just enough attention to the screen to figure out around what time you should choose one of those things, and then you just do it. And it's cool that you figured out that those are solid options in neutral, but what you need to do is figure out how to kind of do less, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And to be clear, I don't mean use these options less often. It's just that it is abundantly clear that the way your brain is working, you're looking at the screen and you're thinking, oh, now is a moderately good time to do X, so I'm going to do X, right? If I run up and just faultless defense to stop, right, FD break, or if I just sat there, you would have a roughly equal chance of still choosing one of those things, even though you have information on the screen telling you that's probably not a good idea, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So you pick this up with a Dragon Punch, right? Her DP sucks, and it's worse than most because it hits late, right? Because it hits late, you have less time to react before deciding to commit to it, right? That's kind of true for all your shit. Like everything you're doing, I would say just wait a little bit longer to decide if that's actually the right thing to do or not. And one of the ways you can do this is by finding things to do that aren't nearly as expensive, right? So the thing with the slide is that if you hit it, it's great. But if you whiff it, they basically get to take a turn. Like, even if they don't get to hit you, if they don't whiff punish, it's still, you're going to recover long enough that it's probably my turn to do something, right?
For at max range or beyond max range, it's quite safe, except for a character who can teleport or just get in on you really fast. But like throwing it out repeatedly is just leaving me vulnerable.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if this felt reasonably safe to whiff, like from full screen or something. But the thing is that in this game, people are almost always going to be moving towards you, right?
Yeah.
So the available space that they have, right? It like that shit collapses super fast if you're running forward and they're running forward, right?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get the hang of the Jacko, like judging how much time you have to put either one house or two houses.
Yeah.
The difference is just getting counter hit.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? It felt like you weren't, because you were focused on doing this thing in neutral first before trying to put out a house. You didn't put out that many houses, right? Mm-hmm. And to me that makes sense. I think you could have put out a few more just to keep me moving in a little bit faster. But honestly, against Chip, I can see why you'd want to focus on getting the knockdown first before setting that stuff up. So that made sense to me.
Yeah, I generally play the character maybe a little more aggressively than she's designed for, but I kind of prefer sort of playing in and around than just like setting houses and playing like keep away, which isn't obviously what you're saying, especially since Chip can just get in anyway, can get behind me or whatever, teleport in. But yeah. So I do need to walk that back just a little bit, I think, because I think I play way too far forwards for someone who's still figuring it out.
At the very least, like, get a sense of that as a range, right? You're saying walk that back forward. I don't think you have to do it all the time. You should probably calibrate your kind of default play level of aggression to be a little bit further than where you were, right? Or a little bit closer to the bases than where you were. But you want to be able to play the breadth of the character, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if I were to give you one question to answer, right? Like, let's say we play next week. I would hope this is the one thing that I want you to come into next week's session or the next time I play you. It would be finding ways to do nothing.
Yeah.
Because right now you're either you're very kind of tense and you're looking for something, right? And that much is obvious. And then you press a button and you kind of hope it works. But what you want to do is get good at doing nothing. And by nothing, let me clarify, I mean kind of low to no risk stuff, right? You want to be doing stuff that keeps you active on the screen, right? You don't just want to stand there, because if you stand there, it makes it super easy for the opponent to know where and when you're going to be, right? So you need to inject some variability into your position over time. You need to find shit to do. But you want to be doing shit that ideally doesn't incur much risk on your own and could possibly incur a strong response from somebody else, right? An example would be like figuring out how to run up and then FD break, right? And maybe whiff a button. That would be that's one example of kind of doing nothing and checking them, right? If you could find an example of doing nothing that might actually get them to like jump at you or air dash at you or bait them into thinking you're doing something bigger than you are, even better, right? But right now you kind of go from 0 to 100 in terms of your risk profile in neutral, and especially like Chip will expose that super quickly, right? But it's also something which like in general, I think once Jacko gets that first knockdown, things actually get a lot easier for her, right? Especially if it's in the right time and the right place. So you want to spend a lot of time kind of trying to figure out the stuff you can do in neutral that could potentially get you that knockdown without actually risking yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So
yeah.
Normally this would be where I'd cut the session off, but I think our 820 person bounced. So if you want to go and play more games where you try to do nothing, let's fucking do it.
Yeah, we'll run a few more.
Sweet.
Yeah, I saw a bit of the stream earlier, or at one of the other streams where you talked about the Jacko players. And yeah, Jacko is sort of I've never been great at fighting games.
Yeah.
So, but my scene is like very good at Guilty Gear. And
Sure.
plays a lot of Guilty Gear.
Yep.
Take part, basically.
Which is great. There are people who are not so lucky.
Yeah. No, they're great players, and I've learned a lot from them.
Yeah, Jacko is tough. I appreciate that there are people who like her, and I appreciate that those people are playing fighting games in a way that they might not have felt comfortable to play before, but they do pay a cost, and they just kind of they don't realize that they're paying a cost at the time.
This game I played a while before it helped.
There you go. Oop. Better.
Another old habit that dies hard from my days of playing Vampire is pressing buttons in the air really early.
Ah, yeah.
It's like jumping and immediately pressing H.
Well, you can get away with that if you use a different button. Oh, nice. See, we did a whole lot of nothing there. Good job.
Duel 2. All or nothing.
What's up, Shiblumps? I've noticed a lot of good chip players. What they'll do is they'll do just jump forward punch, and it's kind of like the equivalent of like whiffing a punch in neutral in Street Fighter or something, where it's just this really low commitment move. And it whiffs fast enough that you can do whatever afterwards, right? So if they happen to be jumping at you at the time, jump punch will catch it, right? And if not, then you can go do whatever the heck it is you wanted to do. And I like that because it's surprisingly hard to do nothing in this game. Like the obvious things, ways of doing nothing, all basically get you negative penalty.
Yeah. There's a joke from a local player that the only character in this game who gets to actually do nothing and be powerful while doing it is Saul. Because he can pressure people just by standing still.
Right.
That could happen at any time.
Versus Jack O. Get ready to rock.
So I forget, how long you've been playing now?
About a year.
Okay.
But not, I haven't really
Not
been,
consistently.
not consistently. I haven't really been
Yeah.
in training mode a lot like I used to.
Mm.
And honestly, I never really knew what to do that much besides just like
Sure.
combo practice. And it is a weird character, so.
Yeah, I can imagine training mode with Jacko being even harder for a new player to figure out, just because, like.
There are minion setups, but
Right, but that is exactly the kind of thing I imagine new players probably wouldn't think a whole lot about.
yeah, and it also, a lot of it is kind of based on feel, like
Right.
sort of having a sense of when the minions, their attack cooldown is about to end. Oh, press the button.
Cool. The doll. Ah.
Yeah, in the last local tournament that we had, every set pretty much ran the same way, actually, where I would be doing pretty well and then steadily sort of start to make, I think, the same mistakes. I have some bad muscle memory with these age buttons. And also just people would learn to play around me.
Yeah, tournament play is really good for getting you to freak out and forget everything.
Yeah.
Or also make you realize that you might have thought that you had a lot more shit from like a particular position than you actually have. Like, I thought I had way more mix-ups than I did, and I remember going to tournament like I think it's earlier this year and realizing that no, like I had people could who are actually good could like see something once and not get hit by it again, basically. And I was like, damn, I guess I just need like a couple sets worth of mix-ups, like just to play the game, right? So if there's one thing that I actually envy you about as a Jacko player, it's that you've had to learn the Jacko stuff like her minion timing and whatever. Oh my god, these annoying little shits. You've already had to learn that shit, so at least when you play another Jacko, like, you know?
Oh, I pushed the button.
Oh, nice. This is actually good. This is good practice for me too. I've been getting a lot of Jacko lately, and it's like there's a local Jacko who beat me in tournament last time we played, and I gotta make sure I'm prepping for him next time. He's really patient too. I remember playing him and thinking he's like him and GC Yoshi were like two of the most patient Guilty Gear players I've ever played against. But a patient Jacko is just scary. Because honestly, like, she's got some neat neutral tools, but if she's swinging, I'm not too worried. Woo! Ah! I wanted that throw. Oh my god, no. Oh.
When I first saw people playing this game at locals, I saw that the chip really slow projectile. I started laughing, but now I'm like, oh no.
So it used to be as taunt, and so in the arcades the taunt was the start button, so you had to reach all the way up there to hit the damn thing, and it just looked ridiculous every time. And like they didn't change him much between like XX all the way to Accent Core, like in all the older Guilty Gears. And one of the only changes they made was to actually make that thing an actual move, even though it does like 1 damage or whatever.
I gotta learn to use that button. Oh.
Oh my god. Alright, finally got my tick throw.
All or nothing.
So you're doing a bit better in neutral there. You weren't swinging as hard, and you were waiting a little bit more before you pressed the button. I wonder, were you paying much attention to what I was doing to you after I got a knockdown?
Not particularly, no.
Okay, so that's definitely one of those things that you want to get the hang of just tracking in your head. You don't, at the level that you're at, I wouldn't worry too much about like, oh, did he come in with this or that or this other thing? At a very basic level, just ask yourself if I'm making you block high or low, right? Am I crossing you up, or am I going for a throw, right? If you were paying attention to this, you might have noticed that I was pretty much doing like meaty gamma blades almost every single time, right? And yet, despite that, you kept, like, I would occasionally catch you. Like, I'd be standing like half screen or maybe like sweep range away from you, and I'd do a meaty gamma blade, but then you pressed a button or you went for DP or whatever the heck. I don't know exactly what it was you go for. But that kind of pattern recognition is one of those things that, like, once you get the hang of doing it, and all you need is, like, you can put a sticky on your monitor saying, hey, don't forget to pay attention to their decisions or whatever, right? Remember what they do after they knock me down. If, like, that stuff can instantly make your game more powerful, right? Not because they're going to do meaty gamma blade every single time, but because if you're not even looking for those patterns, then everything you do on defense is going to be kind of panicky and reactive. And I think that might be one of the reasons why you're doing wake up DP or wake up buttons as much as you are, right? Is because if you're not paying attention to that, then each time you get up, you're like, oh my god, what the fuck? I don't know what's coming, right? So you should do that. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Cool.